Hi, welcome to the Generative AI for HR podcast. In this podcast, we meet HR leaders, analysts, AI experts, and policy experts across the globe to discuss all things about AI and how it can be applied for the HR function. This is brought to you by Krita. Krita is a generative AI co-pilot for employer branding and talent marketing teams. Today, we are going to talk to Anna Maria, co-founder and CEO of Impact AI. And we are going to talk and dive deeper into how companies can go about building human-centric AI or generative AI products. Welcome to the conversation, and I'm super excited to talk to you.
Hi, Kesavan, and happy that we made it, that we found the time.
Absolutely. So just to get started, I'm curious, can you set the scene for what really is human-centric AI? And
Sure.
why should we be talking about that now?
Yes. So I will make a bit of a bridge between what's human-centered AI and what is Impact AI doing. Starting with Impact AI, you can think of us as the control center that helps AI teams to make sure their AI products, mostly in generative AI, are truly doing what they should do, are the best that they can be. Having said that, think of a AI chatbot, for example, any companion, anything where you can type in a question and something very smart comes back, right?
Yes.
And we realized very often now the last months that in the hands-on experience that these things don't always work the way they should. There are different reasons. There are sometimes technical issues between us and a functioning AI. But sometimes also it's just very like bad design that maybe you didn't think of the request of the user. Maybe you didn't think of how the user is intending to really use that product after all, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of is this bridge between human-centered AI and Impact AI. My background is a lot in HCAI and alignment of AI. And for me, it was always truly important to make sure those AI products that we create understand the human fully and are centered around our values, our wishes, what we want to achieve with it. And so basically augmenting us. That's what HCAI, human-centered AI, kind of is about in a nutshell.
Fantastic. I mean, we are operating in the space of talent attraction, talent engagement, talent retention. So that is all about human beings and people.
Right.
And there are many terminologies that we are coming across. We hear terms of responsible AI, trustworthy AI, explainable AI, aligned AI. Are these all different things, or are they all the same? Or, can you just throw a little bit more light on how do we even get around all these, technologies when thinking about product?
Right. That's such a great question. And I have to tell you, I ask this question myself, I think, every day. Because if you set it in perspective, AI in general, but also then more just like thinking about explainability, trustworthiness is a very young area of science, of technology. And to some extent, experience is missing. And so what happens in the beginning, you have all of these terminologies, which will have to become more precise the more of a mass adoption is arrived. And that being said, I think you can find always small differences in how you would look at trustworthy and maybe responsible AI. Sometimes it's just which nation is talking, so or which continent. I think the underlying structure is really, and this will come now more with regulations popping up and with the discussions in AI safety. It's really about, again, it comes back to the user and and to the human. So is it useful? Is it usable for the end user? Could there be any harm? Could there be any harm done to the whole system? So what are the socio-technical implications? Explainable AI might be a bit more defined because it had his past in the technology. Like developers were really thinking about, researchers were thinking about explainable AI already, saying, okay, how can the system now explain what it did? That's a bit easier. But the difference between trustworthy and responsible, I would say, is a very minor one. In the end, again, we want to arrive at systems which are usable, useful, which are well intended for users and for the businesses.
Fantastic. You touched upon regulation. In our space, we have, for example, state of New York, they came about with the AI bias laws, and
Right.
which specifically addresses how you build AI that is unbiased. Similarly, are there, can you throw some light around compliance, specifically around AI, generative AI products that we are building, and how that is shaping how we think about product?
I think the New York Law Act is one of the most important ones that you already bring up, because it shows very well how a vertical application like HR, AI, HR, is prone to specific regulations. And I guess we will see that more and more in the future, in the near future. There will be general structures of what to do and what not to do, but they might be more guidelines. And then you will always have to look at the use case and the vertical, the industry. And looking at that, there is a mix of different regulations and best practices that as a company you want to look at. It starts with GDPR or SOC 2, but also then the one you brought up, anti-discrimination, right? You have these in Canada as well already. So you will want to really consider this mix for your AI products already now, and in future even more. In future, it will just become more clear what you can look at. Currently, the guidance is not there that much for companies, and that's probably what will need to change very soon. So that there's just more of a really tangible guideline there, how to do a good business and how to do a good AI product.
Yeah. You also brought up earlier about getting the design or the architecture also right, designing these products. I'm a little bit. I want to understand how do you build some governance frameworks quite early in your product development life cycle, and what do you need to take into consideration so that downstream you don't go and make a course correction, which might be very expensive. How do you do when you're starting? Would be wonderful to learn about that a bit.
Right, definitely. I think that there are some best practices, and you and your team at Krita AI, I think you're doing really well there. You will need to understand when you create your AI product, you will need to understand kind of how big your enterprise is. That's one, because the larger enterprises we are working with, and we talk about 1 billion upwards here. So those really work hard on a very clear AI framework that implies the different laws and regulations, but also really the values that the company wants to bring in, which looks at what are the best practices for different AI teams, what is allowed for this department and not for the other. So there's a very complex system that can be translated within our platform. But with Impact AI, for example, a smaller team like yours, which has this one very clear goal of a product, of an AI product, can also find a structure very easily, which just is the best balance between the regulations that you will have to look at depending on your market that you serve, and the values that you want to bring in there. And really having this from the beginning in your AI product development is not really hard. Let's say, without making too much advertisement here, let's say with us, it's basically having a click, understanding what's my values, and having this translated in tech. If you want to do this offline, you can still really do that by looking at different regulations where you think they are important for you, translating these modules into to-dos, and then saying, okay, and on top, for us, bias means this definition, fairness, equity means that definition. And that's where you will need to bring in data scientists, to bring in smart people who can translate basically standards into technical metrics. That's important.
Fantastic. So we spoke about how you can, get started at the design itself in terms of thinking about good governance. Now, once you have developed these AI products and you have put them into production, what can you do in terms of measuring? I mean, we are hearing terms like hallucinations, observability. Can you throw some light on, okay, what can you do now for product that is deployed? What are the things that you need to keep track of?
Maybe to emphasize and then go back to your question that you had before. Basically, with this framework that you set yourself in the beginning, you already identify which metrics you want to measure because they are the most important ones for your product, right? So we call them, for example, success factors. You can measure some success factors of your AI. You can measure the responsible AI factors. You can also measure some of the technical ones. Most likely, you will always want to measure your robustness and your accuracy, for example. And for some AI tool like Preta, you want to look a lot into bias, fairness, equity, right? So these in responsible AI. There's also trustworthiness, even as a metric that you can measure. You just have to identify it in your framework, which is the AI governance. And the success factor can be, for some of our customers, that's really interesting. It can be something like empathy. So how well does it connect really with the user then in the end, the user who's chatting with the generative AI? How well does it serve? So these are things that you can measure, and there are automated ways of measuring them, which, again, we translate in our software. If you want to set it up yourself, you basically need to create the structure that helps you with, let's say, ML researchers, ML data scientists, and data analytics people to really keep track of your performance of the product live continuously.
Yeah. All this sounds little bit complex and a little bit expensive. Am I true in saying that, in doing all this, or no, there is an easy way to actually navigate all of this?
Yeah, the easy way is us. The easy way truly is us. That's why we exist. But I would say if you want to start easy and small, right? So if you want to just have, let's say you have an idea and you take an OpenAI API and you might drag it a bit and you want to have a first idea, then what I would do is I would set up a test balloon of people. I would try to identify my first metrics. Depending whether I'm a data scientist or not, I would either have an idea how these metrics are kind of put into real significant relevance in numbers, or I would at least try to quantify it by asking people, okay, what was your understanding? Which is kind of an explicit feedback function. So you would try to ask, do you feel like the response was fast enough for you? Can you measure how fast the response was for you, right? So this is something that you might want to do with 10 people, but then really very early on, if you want to arrive at an AI product that you scale, then you want to bring this into a quality, into some kind of good approach. So their software, I would say, is really the only way to go to.
Yeah. That addresses one aspect. If I am a product development company and I'm developing a product, I wanted to also take a customer's lens here. So for example, our customers are HR leaders and employer branding and talent marketing leaders, right? for them, they are evaluating the right product to use.
Mm.
It's easier to look at impact metrics because these are core, maybe recruitment metrics or engagement metrics that have been well established.
Right.
But for them, how do they look at human-centric, responsible AI? What kind of measures or metrics they need to look at before even accepting a product? Do you have any view from a customer perspective there?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting question because we are selling we are talking, partnering also with this other side of customers, which is the one you just talked about. It's basically, for example, your users in enterprises.
Yes.
And what we see there is there's this department, which would be the HR department, and they have their ideas how their AI system that they want to now buy, how it should perform and in what metrics. Yet between you and this department, very often there's even way more between for AI products, which is the procurement, the law, the legal ops, compliance.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, right. So that being said,
to
speed up this go to sales and to really arrive at this person you want to arrive at, or to then looping back to this person, you will want to have not only the impact metrics ready, saying, oh, look, I can enhance your put through in applications. But what all the other people between really care about is, what did you train on? Is there any problem with PII data? Is there any copyright issue with you? Do you have your governance under control? Are you checking your systems continuously? How do you deal with hazardous prompt injections, right? These things. And so basically, if you are there and selling to an enterprise, there are more impact metrics that you have to communicate in a very confident way with your prospects, because there are really many interests at play, and it's a lot about looking at potential risks and not only looking at the opportunities. So that's where you will want to have your metrics also really communicating more this compliance questions, copyright questions. We call it trust center, right? You can compare it a bit to a Vanta trust center for SOC 2. And what's nice is, again, if you have a software like ours, where you have all your checks under control and all the metrics, then you kind of do them on the go and have the full set of these metrics, right? I'm afraid, very honest approach, like I'm afraid that without any automation, this easily gets too much for any startup / scale up very, very easily. Because then this reporting and measuring and evaluation function is a minimum 2 to 5 people team, let alone really looking and thinking about the success metrics of all of that. So, yeah.
Fantastic. So if I were to get started with all of these aspects as a company, now, again, I'm wearing our customers or the end users hat. How do I get started?
With identifying the metrics, you mean?
With identifying the metrics, yes. Is there like you spoke about control center, is there like a handy resource I can get my hands on and, at least, get started?
I'm afraid not too much yet, because all of these things are like, we're in a new era, right? Also for us with our trust center, we really identify weekly which metrics make the most sense for all parties included, including compliance, regulatory aspects of things, and how can we measure all of that. So I can't really point you towards one resource that you can look at, other than, again, a software like ours. What I would do is always trying to talk to 3, 4, 5 of your top target customers and asking them, like, what metrics do we really need to close this sales? What would speed it up? Ask them up front, and very often you find some overlaps. Copyright, PII data, but also like the safety overall of the AI. How does it perform on this certain case? And then these more efficacy impact metrics, like how much does it cost if I call you? How much will you save me? These things are most likely what your customers ask for.
Got it. Fantastic. So one last question. So if there is one advice you want to give people who are building products in the Gen AI space, what would that be?
I think it goes back to your question. It's really like, do not underestimate how early you can start with crafting the impact of your AI product, with setting the framework, and because you can control your scale so much better. You can control your go-to sales so much better. So really do that early on, and start to enhance.
Fantastic. Great. Well, it was great talking to you, Anna. How can people reach out to you if they would like to, dive deeper into any of these topics that you discussed?
Oh, sure. So if anyone is interested, then always on our website, impact.ai, or anytime on LinkedIn. I'm sure you probably post also with my link in it. So anytime reach out. We're open to help many of you out there. And yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, that's a great website, actually, impact.ai. I don't know how you got a handle of that, but yeah.
This will be another podcast.
Thank you very much for your time, Anna. It was fantastic talking to you.
Thank you. It was lovely. And thanks again that we were able to schedule. We met quite a while ago, and I'm really thrilled to see where Crete AI was growing into now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.